Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines this morning. XDC soon to be on Uphold. We'll take a look at it. Elizabeth Warren on Twitter. You're going to want that. Digital Pound Foundation and Forbes writing about all the SEC emails. And we're going to sit down with John Deaton and Linqto as he breaks down exactly what's going on with the case here and makes the case for Ripple. You're going to want every bit of that, as well as we're going to take a look at 3 different technical analysts on XRP price, and you're going to love it. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at Dig Perspectives at the top of the screen. Everything that we're talking about here today, $1.864 trillion market cap for crypto, ladies and gentlemen. We're actually up 4.60% this morning. We'll take it. It's April 26, 2022. Good morning to everybody. Bitcoin, 40,400 plus. Quite a move from where it was yesterday at 38,000 plus. Ethereum back over 3,000 this morning. And XRP now at the number 8 spot at 68.69 cents. We're still off by more than 11% on the 7-day. Right now, 69 cents on Fiat Link. We're ranging between 67 cents on the bottom and 72 cents on the top. Let's get started with the news this morning here. We start right here. This was retweeted by Uphold here, and it had dates saying Sandbox or Sand, 3D Factory, Enter the Void NFT, and XDC 429. Breaking news is what Dr. Martin says. And if you look here, it was actually retweeted by Uphold. So we don't know for certain, but you want to keep an eye out on it. I've been a fan of XDC for a while, so I will try to fill my bags, not financial advice. But I will tell you this. I did just fill my bags with Stellar and XRP, and I was happy to do it, no doubt about it. And I'm going to continue to accumulate as long as I can. You know, I said when the summary judgment schedule came out and it appeared that absent a settlement, that we would be going into 2023 for a decision on the case between SEC and Ripple. I said, if they're dumb enough to let me, I'm smart enough to do it. I'm going to keep accumulating. I know what I hold, and I'm not trying to convince anyone. Everyone's got to make up their own mind, and everybody has their own threshold when it comes to high-risk investments. And that's exactly what we're all dealing with in the digital asset space right now with the lack of clarity. Looking right here, Elizabeth Warren calls for tougher tech regulation after Elon Musk Twitter deal. You know what I find interesting about this? People like her scare the living daylights out of me. Because when we were watching Twitter actually squelch free speech on conservatives on the platform, which we were seeing all the time, and anybody pushing back on a government narrative, she had nothing to say. These people frighten me. Because I tell you that one of the scariest things about people like Elizabeth Warren is that you should want everyone to have free speech, even the ones that you think are a little, crazy or what have you. Because the truth is, I'd rather you share your opinion with me and I know who I'm actually dealing with than the opposite. But you know what? People like this are very, very scary because when it's in their favor, they don't care, right? But when it happens to them, then they get a little wild over all of this. And what we see here is not her free speech getting stepped on the way so many others have on social media platforms like Twitter. But what we actually see here is a fear of losing control of the narrative. She's scared because she knows that Elon Musk is not going to carry the baton from mainstream media and the government. And that scares the daylights out of people like her. And I like that. Digital Pound Foundation says with sanctions cutting them off from large parts of the global financial system, Russia is looking for alternative ways to make payments. Now, remember, this isn't a YouTuber or a podcaster. This is the Digital Pound Foundation talking about the launch of the digital ruble by next year. This is really important because we know that Susan Friedman, head of Ripple Policy, is also a part of the Digital Pound Foundation. I think we all see what is coming. It is inevitable, and certainly at this point, I think imminent, right? We're going to see some new financial system rolled out to deal with this fractionalized payment zone world that we're moving into. Shout out to Rosalind Layton here. I tell you, She has carried the torch on this SEC case from day one. She was the first and original reporter to really grab onto Digital Asset Investor and myself and everything that was being uncovered at the time. And then from there, DAI was able to rope in Charles Gasparino, and it just exploded from there. And I tell you, Rosalind Layton here, and I'm not going to read this article here, but I brought it up because, for one, it's a fantastic article, and I appreciate everything that Rosalind Layton does to really shine a light on the wrongdoing of the SEC at this point and how they're doing regulation by enforcement. Now, one thing I did want to show here is there is a part of this article here that I wanted to highlight where it says such brazen conduct is business as usual at the SEC. Outraged investors and consumers now seek justice in court, providing the reckoning that Congress should have imposed. This blasé acceptance to agency overreach could punish lawmakers in November. Now, the reason I show that is because this came from Rod Hopp, and I got to shout out Rod Hopp because he is an original Hall of Famer on this channel, and he had a great point of view and insight that we should all be thinking about and collectively moving towards. We need to organize and vote in anyone willing to hold the SEC accountable in the November elections for the jurisdictional overreach on digital assets. We need to call Gary Gensler to carpet, and the only way to do that is to change the political landscape in Congress. I don't often like to talk about politics because I really don't have any. And the only time I get into politics is when my pursuits are met with some kind of political challenge. And when I get to that intersection or crossroads, that's when you see me get involved because I don't want to see my pursuits squashed because of some political narrative that's being carried. Now, let's start right here because this is an amazing back and forth between Joe Indoso from Linqto and John Deaton right here, Nick Burafedo and Ray Fuentes. And mainly the conversations you're going to hear in these highlights are going to be between Joe Indoso and John Deaton. And I want you to hear where he lays this out here. They started off, and I'm not going to play the part that started off, talking about how Coinbase had an $8 billion valuation. And we all know what the size of that public exit was. It was selling for about $33 a share, and then ended up going for like high threes, $400 a share when it first had its public exit. So that's one heck of a I guess, comparable when you compare that to Ripple, and understanding that the case itself has suppressed the valuation and price of what is happening out here right now. But let me start right here because this is a great back and forth, and I want to pick it up right here. Listen to this.
Most disruptive technology, and they tax it. You know,
you're talking about the SEC taking the most disruptive technology and they tax it. And what the reference was is that the SEC's become quite a great barometer for what a good investment is, because they sued Amazon, they sued Tesla, and Microsoft, and many other companies that are extremely successful because they want to get their pay, like payola.
You've got to come in and pay your tax before you're going to be blessed.
Pay to play.
To move on. But the other thing to look at it from a Ripple's perspective is take worst case scenario. All right, let's just take the absolute worst case scenario. Judge says XRP is an investment contract with Ripple, and she doesn't distinguish between, secondary market. We just have that testimony. Does that mean Ripple goes out of business?
No.
All right, the Ripples can still sell to accredited investors. Mm-hmm. They just have to comply with those things. All I'm saying is that would it be a hit? Sure. But would it mean that they go from a $15 billion company to a $5 billion company? No.
No. That would probably cause them to leave for farther shores, just like, I think that's what I would see happening in that scenario.
Now, I want to make the point here because I made this point the other day about the summary judgment schedule that came out that looks to take us into 2023 absent some kind of settlement. This is a key point that Joe Indoso is making right here. If Ripple felt that they were really in the losing side of this thing and it was going to harm them and the use of XRP, they could absolutely pull out of the United States because they have great success everywhere else in the world and clarity. Continue to listen here.
And the thing that's really interesting is that just that when you juxtapose what the environment is like outside the US compared to the US, the comparison is really stark, right? Because one of the things we know from last year is that Ripple's, RippleNet product and ODL saw a massive adoption surge, all of it overseas last year. And think about that. These are financial institutions, many of them are regulated banks that are using XRP as part of a international payments processing system, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are the implications? A, they're regulated by their nation's central bank and their financial regulator. Clearly, those sovereign regulators don't have an issue, right? But the larger thing is that those banks, because they're transacting in the international payment space, are also signatories to and regulated by the charter of the Bank of International Settlements.
Listen to this.
The BIS has one really important function, and that is in order to safeguard the integrity of the total global, financial and payment system, it imposes capital requirements on banks, right, of all these different countries. Your capital requirement calculation is very driven by the composition of your portfolio, right, and whether you have securities and not, right? If the Bank of International Settlements felt that these banks had securities exposure, that would have a significant impact. My guess is they're not treating them as securities and imposing all sorts of additional capital requirements on these banks. Otherwise, they wouldn't be wanting to use ODL, or it'd be a lot harder for them. And that hasn't been the case.
That is a huge point that Joe Indoso is making right there, that we already know from that perspective that the BIS sees XRP as a virtual currency and does not have a problem with the asset at all. Which means not only are we seeing the clarity in these individual regions like the Middle East or Singapore or Japan or the UK, we're seeing a congruent agreement between the BIS and the banking system all around the world even. That to me is hugely bullish right there, ladies and gentlemen. Keep listening.
Right. So now, not only do we have sovereign regulators, we have the BIS itself that's, tacitly saying it's not a security. You can use it for your ODL and your RippleNet. And here we are stuck in the Stone Ages in the United States. It makes me nuts. Just think.
It makes me nuts too, Joe. I tell you, and it's amazing. Now, this whole thing is remarkable, but I'm going to bring it right here because we talk about all sales of XRP. Listen to this comment right here from John Deaton.
Security. And instead, in this case, they're saying all sales of XRP, including the ones that I did last night on Uphold.
The ones I did this morning on Uphold and Coinbase for XLM.
Right? That those were unregistered securities too. And they know that's not the law. They're not dumb people. They know that. So why are they doing it? There's some other reason.
Yeah.
It's true. Now let me move you here. There's some other reason and narrative for why they are doing it. Take a listen here.
So I always go back to, like, people say to me, how could you invest in Ripple? And I use this lawsuit as an example why. Right? Because we know that for 30 months they looked at these guys.
Listen to
and
this.
They investigated them. They were turned over every transaction that Garlinghouse and Larson made, and every transaction Ripple made between 2013 and 2020. And after 2.5 years, they didn't come up with one claim of fraud or misrepresentation.
Think of that. Not one claim of fraud or misrepresentation, because they would be all over that issue had they found something like that. They have examined every single sale of XRP. Now you think of that for a moment. Now listen, This is why you look at these things and they call it special sits or special situations where, you have price suppression on something like Ripple private equity. That's exactly what this case has become. Whether you're talking about some kind of conflict of war or embargoes or sanctions like SWIFT or what have you, the Russia-Ukraine conflict around the world could impact certain things. This case is impacting Ripple the same exact way, right? It is suppressing what we know about this company, but it will not last forever, even though it feels like it, because the reality is, just as John Deaton said, they have not found one claim of fraud or misrepresentation at all in over 2.5 years. And if there's anything that's criminal at all here, it is the fact that the SEC has done nothing but delay a case that they have brought. Let's take a look right here, because we got 3 different technical analysts that tell us that the charts are still bullish. Even though we've seen the price take a hit because of the summary judgment schedule. I tell you, if there's anybody controlling price out here, it's the SEC, isn't it? Looking right here, we see the RSI is the big thing to pay attention to right here, ladies and gentlemen, showing that we bottomed out here, and we know what happens after we bottom out. We see exactly every time when it bottoms out, we get back up and we get some kind of a spike. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed at all, but it is a thing to pay attention to when it comes to the charting tools. Looking at this cup and handle on the 2-month chart. Now, I find this interesting as well from EGRAG, EGRAG, I guess it is crypto, and basically, if you look at this, they're talking about the possibility of the target from this cup and handle going to hit the 1.618, which is a very, very key spot, right? Right here. There it is right there. The 1.168 is a key spot on the fibs for XRP over the years of this chart. In all of these charts. So it doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but it is something to pay attention to, which would put us at about $13.40. Now that is remarkable, understanding that right now we see the case going into 2023. So how can these charts look so bullish? And remember, this chart right here is a 2-month chart showing a beautiful textbook cup and handle. We'll keep an eye on it. These indicators of these charts and these tools, they can break down and they can also follow through and actually reach their goal. If you look at the 1-month chart here, it's showing here from XRP Captain here. If you look at this, he's showing the top range of that channel there is a $300 mark. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're going to hit that overnight. I'm not suggesting that. But what I'm suggesting that with all 3 of these technical analysts here is that everything they're looking at, no matter what they're using, is completely bullish. And I find that's something that we should all want to pay attention to see if it plays out, and if it does, how well it does play out at all. Look, that's going to do it for me. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe and leave a comment below. Share with somebody you know. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Remember, we go into 2023 on this case, but that is absent a settlement. I know for a fact the SEC is not going to let anyone see those emails. That is for damn sure. I'll catch all of you on the next one.